are you when the spotlight fades, the lights go out, and the only person left in the room is you trying to figure out what next? That's what we're talking about today on Front Porch Chronicles. I'm your host, Clinton Foshee, aka the Ninja. Today, we have on a guy that's walked through the fire, Mark the Shark, Irwin, not only a leader inside the cage, but outside as well, working with athletes' journey home and helping change people's life for the better. Welcome to the Front Porch, Mark the Shark, Irwin. Thank you so much for coming on, bro. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here, my friend.
So a lot of people know Mark the Shark as the fighter. I've had the privilege of getting to know Mark the Shark, the man, and you have my admiration. But tell us who you were before the cage.
I started relatively late in life. I started training in my early 20s. I think I had my first amateur fight when I was 24. So yeah, I really didn't step into the ring until I was a young adult. But before that, to be honest with you, I was a bit of a troublemaker as a youth, got in a lot of trouble with drugs and alcohol and the law as a young man. And it really wasn't until I found athletics and especially combat sports that it really gave me a purpose and a passion and something that I could put my energy into. And I think combat sports really in a lot of ways saved my life.
It's funny, it gets a negative connotation with people because whenever they hear like, oh my God, they naturally think, and this is one of the things, it's like a myth buster, right? Because they think you guys are these just hardcore, like, and it's like, I tell people all the time, combat sports fighters are the most loving, caring, friendly people because they've been through trials and tribulations, overcome those things. And so they have more of a kind, gentler heart when it comes to these things. Now, they can go zero to Chris Brown. I tell people all the time, I'm the most friendly Southern guy, but I can go zero to Chris Brown kind of as quick as I need to. Thinking back to when you first started your journey in combat sports, did you ever imagine you would get to where you got?
I think we all have daydreams and fantasies and things like that. And I grew up watching combat sports as a young kid. So I always looked up to fighters and idolized them for their toughness and their bravery. But to be honest, no, I really didn't think that I would be where I'm at today as far as my professional fighting career has gone. When I started really just for fun. My friends were taking some boxing lessons in the garage and they brought me along one day and I beat up all my friends and I had a good time doing it. And I fell in love with the sport. But I tell everybody all the time, initially I wanted to just have one amateur fight because I felt like, I was good enough to maybe get in there and win and maybe even knock somebody out. I thought it would be kind of a fun adventure and make for a good story and a good laugh, in hindsight. And so I set out with the aspiration to have one amateur fight. And I had a USA boxing match. I won by knockout. And then shortly thereafter, I started working in a gym, teaching classes on the weekend. And I've been training and competing ever since. And here we are today.
The journey. I kind of like you. I was in the streets. And so I was always fighting. I was the guy that was off the chain. And so I went into an MMA gym. I had my roommate. He was like, oh man, you should come. It's fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm from the hood. I'm 100 and in the streets, right? And I'll still never forget Matt Hobson. I went and trained and I remember him leg kicking me. And I remember thinking to myself, for that first 30 seconds, I was landing some things, or so I thought, but he kicked me with that leg kick and I was gassed. And I remember thinking to myself, I looked down at my leg because I was like, did he hit me with a hatchet or did he kick? And so I had two amateur MMA fights. I lost my second one. Won the first one. Second one, I lost to a jiu-jitsu guy. I signed up for jiu-jitsu, won the Atlanta Open, and kind of started winning a bunch of competitions and stuff. And I was like, bro, I'm too old for this. I'm leaving this to these young intenders. And I went on about my business and the story was rope. And I went 1-1, so I was 500. As long as I'm not in the losing column, I'm okay with it. So you've been under a lot of tough battles, but What is it behind the scenes? What's something that has really tested you?
Yeah, like I kind of mentioned earlier, growing up, I had a lot of problems with drug and alcohol addiction and problems with the law. I've been jail, rehab, detox, sober living homes. I've been out on the street. I've had loaded guns pointed at my head. It's a miracle that I survived all those experiences and that I'm still here today to talk about it. But ultimately, I think it was that tough upbringing that really made me into the person that I am today and gave me the toughness and the tenacity that I needed in order to be successful in combat sports. So looking back, I don't regret any of it. Like I said, it made me the man that I am today, and I don't think I'd be the fighter I am if not for my troubled past as a youth.
It's always crazy watching the maturation, right? Sometimes you meet somebody and you don't have to say a word. Instantly, it was automatically like on site, like iron sharpens iron. I think back to a conversation that really helped change my life, two of them. One was a conversation with you, but the other one was, and you're in great company with this, was Mike Tyson. Talked to Mike Tyson, and we were at his house in Newport Coast, and we were talking about trials and tribulations and things that have gone on. And he said something to me that really shook me because for a long time, I questioned my faith. I questioned everything because, like you, man, I've had guns pointed at me. Like, there's 0.001% chance that I should be alive or that I should be a person that still cares about and loves and wants to help other people. And this is what he told me. He said, God gives his toughest battles to the ones that he knows that can handle it to be a light to others. Bro, when I say like ever since then, I've been on a journey to heal myself more intensely, but also to align with people. And so that brings us to the next thing I want to talk about because athletes' journey home, you're working with, man, it is a game changer, and the work and the stuff that y'all are doing are next level. How did you originally get involved and how did all of that come about?
So, Athletes Journey Home is a nonprofit scientific research group, and our goal is to try and cure brain damage caused by traumatic brain injuries using psychedelics. We just had our first research project in April in Portland, Oregon, where we put 8 high-profile athletes through psilocybin therapy and integration coaching to help them with their TBIs, depression, anxiety, and other issues that are related to traumatic brain injuries. But it started with my coach and dear friend Ian McCall, the former MMA world champion and UFC star. As a young man, he was one of my favorite fighters. He was from the same neighborhood as me. He was in the lower weight classes like me. He was someone that I could kind of relate to and see a bit of myself in, out here as an adult and a pro fighter is like I said, my best friend and my head coach. Like a lot of fighters at the end of his career, found himself to be financially broke, physically broken, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He's addicted to opioids to help manage his pain from all his injuries from fighting, and he was suicidal. And it was only because he had a young baby girl, a daughter, that he had to look out for that he didn't take his own life. And so he had to find another way to heal himself. He credits psychedelics with being a huge part of that. Now he's a healthy, successful entrepreneur and is the CEO of the nonprofit Athletes Journey Home. And, for several years, he was having trouble getting funding and getting the project off the ground. And that's when I came onto the team. It was something that I wanted to get involved with as well because, traumatic brain injuries and the struggle when people's career is over is something that affects our entire community of fighters. And so I came on board, and in my last world title fight, I was actually able to help raise the money thanks to the president of my organization, Mike Vasquez with BKB Bare Knuckle. Shout out to Mike. He made a large donation that we were able to use the money to fund the research project and sponsor all of the therapy, medicine, and treatment of 8 athletes from all over the world. So that's how I got started with it, and that's where we're at now.
I'm going to post the link on the YouTube for the documentary. I had a chance to watch it, and it's life changing, and I think it's something that really needs to be looked at strongly, because what we're doing for mental health in America by feeding pills and not really addressing the issues at hand, we're just numbing them, right? And that's where this is. The toughest step that I ever took was one that I had to take. I've been sexually assaulted. I've been beaten. I literally, if there was a type of abuse, I've endured it. And I had to look in the mirror and I had to be realistic. And I tell people all the time, it's kind of like AA. Until you can actually look in the mirror and be real with yourself and say, hey, you know what? I need help. I've got to address and look at these things and figure out how I can learn to cope. You can't change those things. And some of those things are ingrained in your DNA, that these things get ingrained into your DNA. But it's one of those things that you learn how to cope by admitting, acknowledging, and processing. And this helps people do that and be able to actually heal rather than just continue to numb and go along and be a puppet, to what the world wants, So that it really hits different hearing that, and for athletes especially, it's hard because a lot of times fighters are put on pedestals and they feel like it becomes almost part of who their identity is and who they are. And they get caught up in trying to appease and trying to be what everybody else needs and wants. And that analyzes the problem, because when the crowd's gone and the lights go out, at the end of the day, it's just you. So with all of that being said, what is some of the support that you're helping these athletes with, or normal people, so that way, the people can help get behind you?
Yeah, as far as the research that we're doing, we're trying to collect data to definitively prove that these plant medicines have medical and therapeutic benefit to not just athletes, but all people, whether they're struggling with TBIs, depression, drug addiction, anxiety, PTSD. The preliminary data from our research suggests huge potential for healing, as well as reversing actual damaged tissue in the brain. So from a scientific perspective, that's really what we're focusing on. From a community aspect, really trying to just provide community outreach, try and provide support, whether it's just emotional support or helping with protocols as far as diet, nutrition, exercise, and supplementation that can benefit people who are struggling with TBI and related issues. So working on multiple fronts, working on it from a medical scientific standpoint, trying to work at a communal standpoint, and really just trying to help people.
Do y'all have an alignment with anybody that you're working with in Portland?
Yeah, so we had our first retreat in April. It was at the Experience Onward Center. It's one of only 10 legal psilocybin therapy clinics in the United States. It's headlined by Daniel Garcia, who was a two-time Stanley Cup winner in the NHL. And after a long hockey career, I think he said he's had over 150 professional fights on the ice. He was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and dementia. And they told him that there really was no cure. And this was back in 2015. So Daniel did a deep dive into research on his own, and he started using large doses of psilocybin. After a couple rounds, he got his brain scanned again, and there's no evidence of dementia or Alzheimer's, and he's effectively been able to cure himself of neurodegenerative diseases using plant medicine. So we've linked up with him to host our first retreat, and we're working on collaborating with him and his site on future retreats to be able to help collect more data and help more athletes and anybody struggling with TBIs.
That is amazing. It's crazy thinking about the reversal. Whereas you see most people that are going to the doctor, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole, right? Like they're just giving you medicines to not deal with what the problems are, because that's what they want, is more money. So it's crazy that projects like these are so overlooked and are so important. Like for people, athletes, just kind of everybody in general that needs help. Looking back during your fight career, what's something that you wish someone would have told you along your journey?
I guess maybe just to trust the process and enjoy the journey. Combat sports, it's a crazy world. And, it's a lot of having to face your own fears and self doubt and things like that. And I think a lot of times we get really goal orientated, like, I'm going to win the world championship or, whatever that goal might be. And you get so caught up in looking at, climbing to the peak that you forget to enjoy the journey. And so I think probably that, trust the process and enjoy the journey.
I'm not gonna throw my age out there because I'm old, but the older I get, I look back at or think back to when people used to tell us like, enjoy life the way you have it now, because when it's gone, and the older that I get, the more I understand, and I'm like, I wish I would have listened back then and taken, but in the same sense, now I take each thing, I do it with gratitude and love, whether it's going to a kid's function or just telling them I love them. Like those little snippets and clips that we think are insignificant, I look back at now and think about how important those things are. And a lot of those things I wish I would have had, but didn't. But now I try to pass down to my kids. So, what's your biggest challenge that you face daily now, and how do you overcome that?
My main focus these days is just working with the foundation. We're really trying to raise awareness and we're trying to raise funding to help, finance future trips and future therapy for athletes, veterans, and anybody struggling with TBI. So I'm really just trying to get the word out and I'm really trying to be a good ambassador for the nonprofit, for plant medicine, and for everything that we're advocating for, because I think there's a lot of stigmas, a lot of preconceived misconceptions about plant medicine and about the research that we're doing. So yeah, that's really my main focus, and my main struggle is just trying to raise more money to help people and to help change the way that people think about plant medicine and break down a lot of those preconceived misconceptions and stigmas and stereotypes.
There's so many misconceptions and stereotypes. It's like looking at the research that you guys are doing and watching the documentary and those things. All of those things are debunked as far as the misconceptions. And it shows that these things are actually helpful and beneficial and life changing to people, like definitely life altering. I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I'm here to support any way I can. You're still a fighter, just in a different arena now. What keeps you motivated, or what motivates you daily?
Like I said, just really trying to make this happen for Athletes Journey Home, trying to help as many people as we can. We got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of people that are struggling with traumatic brain injuries, whether they're athletes, first responders, veterans, and everyday people. Most of us have had a traumatic brain injury at some point in their life, whether it's playing sports, you fall and hit your head, you get in a car accident, right? Life is dangerous and our brains are fragile. So, this is something that affects a great number of people, the vast majority of us, quite frankly, to varying degrees, some of us worse than others. But, we really don't have any legal cures, therapies, or protocols. So, my biggest motivation and my biggest goal is trying to advance the research and the cause and to get rid of these antiquated, outdated laws that have prevented us from being able to help people, because that's my ultimate goal, is to try and help as many people as I can, whether it's my community of combat sports athletes, the first responders, or anybody at large who's struggling with traumatic brain injuries.
The community that you and Ian have created has been life changing to a lot of people. I know for me, You guys being there for me and helping guide me through and navigate life again has been truly life changing. For people that are going to watch this, highly suggest you go watch the documentary and pay attention to what these guys are doing. I'll definitely have all of the links, and everybody go follow Mark on social media as well as Athlete's Journey Home. Who else should they be following?
Athlete's Journey Home. I'm at Mark the Shark Irwin on Instagram. Ian McCall, my coach, he's the CEO and founder of the nonprofit. And so he's always posting a lot of content, information, and news pertaining to psychedelics, the research and the legality of it.
Man, I thank you so much for coming on, brother, and everything that you guys are doing. It's amazing, and I'm truly blessed to have you guys in my corner, and I appreciate it.
Well, it means a lot, my friend. I sincerely appreciate it. And you're helping us by just helping to spread the word and the message with your own personal testimonial, using your podcast to help get the word out. So it means a lot. And you're a part of the movement now, too.
I appreciate you, man. You're always welcome on the front porch, and we'll see you soon, brother.
Sounds good, my friend. Thanks again. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.
So, here's what I hope you take away from today. The fight doesn't start when the final bell ends. It's just starting for a lot of us. The fight to heal, the fight to find purpose, and the fight to help others. Mark's story isn't just about grit inside the cage. It's about the pain and dealing with that after. How you turn survival into service and how you keep showing up for others. And if you're in a season where you feel like nobody can hear you, just know this: you're not broken, you're not alone, and you're not done. Keep fighting. And as always, keep it real, keep it rooted, and we'll see you next week on the front porch.